Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Hey, welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, the podcast where we dive into the business side of running a law firm. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and each week we talk with industry experts who help law firm leaders think differently about growth, profitability, and performance so they can build practices that last. Today we welcome Ben Bengtson. Ben is the founder of Bob Law, the law firm of Ben Bengtson, a personal injury law firm based in Atlanta. Ben focuses on representing plaintiffs in personal injury matters, including motor vehicle accidents, slip and fall cases, and general negligence claims. Before entering the legal profession, he served in the United States Army in military intelligence and as an Arabic linguist. I'll say that right at some point. After his discharge, honorably I might add, he earned his undergraduate degree in political science from Augusta State University and went on to graduate near the top of his class from Georgia State University College of Law in 2005. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for being here. I love to understand and hear people's origin stories. Can you tell me from high school to where you are today, how did this happen? Because I think it's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, so I grew up a pastor's kid in the rural outskirts of Sacramento area in California, and so as I was graduating from high school, we really didn't have a lot of options in terms of where to go to school and all that. So I joined the Army and to get money for college, and at the time I was smart enough to have scored really well in this aptitude test for linguists. At the time also, it was like in the early 90s, right after the Gulf War. And my guess is that the Army intelligence people said, we really ought to have some Arabic linguists since we just got, done with a war in the Middle East. They had, before that, they had been pumping out Russian linguists because it was like the Cold War forever. And so I was lucky enough to score really well on this test, and they said, "Okay, we're sending you to language school." And so I spent the hottest couple months of my life in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, which is like in July. I thought I knew hot, John, but
it's not that humid where you grew up with.
No. In the Central Valley area, it'll get 100 degrees, but it won't be like that swampy hot that it is in Columbia, South Carolina. It was really hot. And then after that, I went to the language school, and I spent like a year and a half studying Arabic, like 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, nothing but Arabic all the time. And then I ended up in Fort Gordon, which is just kind of on the outskirts of Augusta, Georgia, and was assigned there. I can't tell you what I did, but
well, you could tell me, but you'd have to kill me, right?
No, it wasn't that secret. It's only if I told you, I'd have to hurt you really bad.
Okay.
So only marginally secret.
So you have a linguistic aptitude. Did you take language in high school?
I took Spanish. I took Spanish in high school, but I thought a lot about how that kind of ended up happening, and the best that I can come up with is that there's a certain mentality of a person who is a language person. It's some kind of combination of music and language arts, and just kind of having, and also this ability to keep a bunch of stuff in your head all at the same time. Turns out that's kind of the same qualities that make a lawyer a really good lawyer, is being able to have all of these facts in your brain at the same time, keep them juggling in the air, and then do something with them, right? So at any rate, the aptitude test was like one of the most bizarre tests I've ever taken in my life. Just they make up this language and you have to keep up with it. Anyways, so so then I was in Augusta. I was in Augusta for 10 years. I went to undergrad. I taught, I was a gymnastics coach. I was a youth director at a church, did a bunch of different things. And then when I graduated, I just got a job representing people in Social Security disability cases. It was like the weirdest thing, John. I found that I fell in love with helping people understand complex things. And I don't really know how to explain it other than like my upbringing had kind of prepared me for that moment. As a pastor's kid, I grew up around people talking about big things, right? Talking about spiritual things, talking about esoteric topics, and heard my dad all my life explaining esoteric and philosophical and religious things in simple terms where people can understand it. And I found that I had that same gift. I had this ability to take a complex subject, this Social Security disability federal regulation law, and just like pave it into a way that people could understand, and then help guide them through it. And that kind of really set the tone for the rest of my career, because I've always been kind of in that place where I'm helping an individual through a weird, like a complex time in their life that they have to navigate.
I want to come back to that thought that you had about you being able to take a bunch of facts, chaos really, and make sense out of it. And I think that you're so right. A lot of attorneys have that ability. A lot of accountants have that ability as well, because there are things that are distractors that don't really apply to the fact pattern that you have to be able to weed out, but you have to know where all these things are and pull them together in a coherent manner and be able to tell a story. So that's a
Yeah.
great skill set that you have.
It is, in talking with other financial people, there is that thing. It's like a thread, or it's like the one button, right, or the one dial or knob that you can turn that turns everything on. If you're thinking about like, okay, well, this is taxable and this is not tax, or this is tax, this is on regular income, and this is on, you can't deduct this, but you can deduct this if it's whatever. And you as an advisor are thinking about all those variables, and that, but you're able to like identify for your client like what that one knob is that makes the most difference.
Yeah, which of those levers can we pull? And attorneys do the same thing. They look at things from all the different angles to see what could happen or what leverage that you have. And it's
Right.
just a unique skill set. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah, and what we found is that that our clients, they're not used to it, right? We're used to, you and I are used to thinking of four different variables all at a time, right? And how, like, if this is taxed at regular income, and this is taxed at the dividend rate, and this is passed, this is passed through, but this is, a this stays in the corporate um, withholdings, right? Like if all these four different variables were a different way, then this would happen, right? But I can't think that way, right? That's why I need somebody like you who can translate the way those variables move. And the same thing is true with my clients. Like, we actually have to take each one of those variables and write them a separate letter about each variable, just so that they can like start to understand how they work together. Yeah.
Well, and in the VCFO world where we provide these services, we're kind of the outsourced finance department for professional firms. What we do is break down the non-financial revenue drivers, the levers we can pull. Like in your case, being a personal injury firm, it's how many cases can we handle? How do we get them in the door? How do we get them to sign up? And then what's the average length? So we would take all that information and we would build a forecast, and we would look at your cash position and say, okay, this is not enough for the risk profile that you have. Here's the goal we need to build to. How do we get there so that the next incremental dollar that you bring in could go into the owner's pocket? How do we leave enough cash in the business? And so many law firms will, at the end of the year, drain the cash position and live on the line of credit for a couple months. And we want to get away from that so that they leave enough cash there so that the next case that settles, there's money they could take out. So that's
Right.
kind of our Or
Yeah, and particularly, I'd be glad to pick your brain about my particular situation offline. But like if you're a pass through entity like I am, like the amount that's in the bank account at the end of the year is kind of important, right? And like I'm certain that you have like really great strategies that people like me can benefit from to understand. Okay, well, like how can I minimize that tax burden at the end of the year if I'm a pass-through organization, but still not be broke in January, right? Because
right.
we literally struggle with that every January, John.
Well, I'm sure. And one of the other things we do for, especially for pass-throughs, is segregate your tax money, right? So we know what your income is on a monthly or quarterly basis, and we have
Yeah,
you set that money aside into a high yield money market account so that when estimates are due or your balance due is, due next April, then that money's already set aside. It's kind of a profit first mentality, although I don't completely agree with all the profit first thought process.
I swear by it.
It's a great concept though to segregate, pay yourself first, set those
Yeah,
taxes aside, and then you're really looking at the operating cash going, okay, do I have enough to run the business?
right.
Anything beyond that I can take out, and then when tax time comes, I've got that money. So
Yeah.
it gives you a peace of mind to be able to sleep at night. So you went from helping people with Social Security disability claims to a defense role, right?
Yeah. So after I graduated from law school, I just wanted a job, right? Like I was looking for anything. I was sending out resumes everywhere, and I just needed to be a lawyer. And so after I took the bar examination, I just got on the pavement and started like pounding on every door I could. And eventually, I got to this place called Swift Curry McGee and Hires, which is it's a medium sized, like really good, like well regarded insurance defense firm, and I got like a great education there and I had a great experience. I had like great bosses to work for as partners, um, but ultimately I was still like a consumer oriented person, not a B2B person. And so like I just I kind of looked at it and said, I really if I really set my mind to it, I feel like I could be a partner here, but it would have to mean that I would have to change my personality to be more of a B2B kind of. I'm representing the institution, I'm representing this organization rather than consumers. And like I just didn't it wasn't who I was. And so they sent me on with their blessing, and I worked for another law firm, a small law firm in Sandy Springs, Georgia, as a claimants attorney for about 6 years. And then I started my own practice in 2012, like 12 years ago. No, 2014, sorry, about 12 years ago.
I have to think, though, that being on the defense side helps you on the plaintiff side because you know how they think. I mean, it's kind of like if you're going to be a criminal defense attorney, you probably should start out in the prosecuting attorney's office
Yeah.
to get to
Uh,
know people and how the prosecution works.
yeah. It's not really that you learn their tactics as much as you get to understand how they think. And exactly what you say, John, right? Like, but let me give you a small example. One, we understand how insurance companies look at a case from a risk profile. And it's simple in its simplest form, it goes something like this. Look, if this is $100 case, if we lose, and we have a 50% chance of losing, the value of that case is $50, right? So we'll offer 45 or something close to that, right? And what we understand on our side is exactly how they think through that. And so we just analyze that case the same way that an insurance company would for our clients and say, listen, you got a tough case, right? Like, I mean, the other person's saying you're at fault. There's no slam dunk here, bud, right? Like you've got $100 case. If you win and you've only got a 60% chance of winning, I'm telling you, like the outcome of this case is going to be somewhere between 50 and $70. And if you want me to go after that, I'm your guy. I can do that. Um, but if you want like the full value of your case, I can't do that unless you want to gamble and go to trial and risk winning or losing. If you want to do that, great. I try cases, but I kind of want I want a sure thing, and I want money, and I want what's the right outcome for you and for my client, and I need to keep the lights on too, right? Like, so once we explain that to the clients, we go through those variables and explain to them how they work together, and they understand how the insurance companies work, then it's much more manageable to get money from insurance companies.
So going back to when you started Bob Law,
mm-hmm.
What's the one or two things that you would do different if you were starting again today from scratch?
Honestly, I would call somebody like you first, John. Like when I started my own practice, it was on shoestrings, and some of the clients that I got to take with me to have a revenue stream. But I really could have used a lot more insight into how business works. I don't know if you've noticed this,
but I think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
But lawyers are kind of bad at business, right? Like, I mean, we have a very unique skill set, and it's how to solve problems. That's how they identify us for law school. They put us in front of this LSAT test, and they say, "Can you solve these problems?" Right? And the best people that solve the best problems are given the highest marks and admitted to the most prestigious law schools, right? And so that's how they identify us, right? And so when we finish, we don't like we're thinking about problem solving. We're not thinking as much about like how am I going to help my client? How am I going to like that's all good. We should be doing that. Like I'm trying to change the industry so that it thinks like that in terms of being focused on the customer experience. I don't know if you've noticed, but that's also kind of lacking in my business. But our mentality is how do I solve this problem, right? And so I can tell you a lot of times, John, what happens is that attorneys go through the same problem that I did, which is I call it the chess fallacy. Chess, like the game chess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes something like this. Really smart people are good at chess. I'm a really smart people. Therefore, I should be good at chess. I can figure this out, right? And it's completely wrong. it's completely wrong, right? Like you can't just figure it out. You need to actually tap into somebody like you, right? Like who can tell us what the moves are, tell us what the plays are, tell us what the what the possibilities are, and study the business instead of just assuming if I hang out a shingle and I have clients that I'm going to make money. Like that was the worst mistake I made, and it plagued me for 8 years before I figured it out.
But you do figure it out along the way. But you're so right. Most attorneys don't have an undergraduate or graduate background in accounting or finance. There are some unicorns out there that really run it like a business. And at the end of the day, you're very skilled, but you're not necessarily running it like a business, in your case, for about 8 years.
Right.
We like to look at the finance function, and we've developed a maturity model. We didn't develop the concept of a maturity model, but we tailored it for law firms. And it's a self-graded function that goes through 5 areas of your finance department. And we grade it together with the client or potential client. And what it does is it tells us where you're really rocking it. And there's usually 2 areas that you score very low in. And we spend the next 6 to 12 months trying to get incrementally better in those 2 areas. And so it helps us set goals to make the business of what you're doing perform better.
And so in that regard, is it mostly in the financial part of the business, or is it also in operating?
It's solely in the financial part of the business.
It's not in production at all. It's just in how do you get money and what do you do with the money when you get it?
Right.
I got it.
I mean, we can comment and give you some best practices from our experience on the process piece of it, but that's really not what we're trying to advise on. There are plenty of people that do that, and you know how to improve those processes as well. I mean, we will, in the forecasting piece, look at the milestones of a case, and we can identify bottlenecks and say, hey, intake's great, discovery's good. Here's the bottleneck, and you got to figure out, is it a paralegal? Is it an attorney that things are getting stuck there because things that should take 8 months are taking 15 months? I mean, if we can shorten that time frame down to what it should be, guess what? That flywheel of cash is going a lot quicker.
So when you talked about non-financial revenue drivers, is that like one of them, like that time on desk or that bottleneck,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
bottleneck function? So it kind of ties a little bit into operations, but most of it, the rest of it is financial.
Right. And another one would be, when I do an intake, what's my conversion rate? I mean, I worked for a long time with a family law firm that was all across the United States, and their conversion rate was 45%. That was their goal. And if they had a whole team of people that did intake, and they were attorneys, if someone was scoring less than 40%, they would get additional training. If somebody was more than 45%, which was the goal, they would train some of the other people. Now, that's kind of like saying Albert Pujols or Tiger Woods could help you at baseball or golf. It doesn't
Right.
always equate that they're going to train you. But the point is, you have to track that. Because I talked to another family law firm just the other day, and their conversion rate was in the 20s. And I was a little bit shocked by that, but there was a reason for it. They didn't charge a consult fee. And so the qualifications of the people they were talking to were not where it should be. And, we just suggest things that say, look, if you charge, a couple $100 consult fee, you're going to cut down at your at-bats, but they're going to be more serious about hiring you.
Yeah.
So in the PI world, you're not going to charge a consult fee, but in the family law world, you would.
You might. Yeah. And in immigration, I've heard. Yeah.
Right. You want the tire kickers to move on.
Yeah. We struggle with that, John. One, up until maybe a year or two ago, I would talk to all of the potential clients, for other reasons, for PR reasons. Because if I didn't take them as a client, I wanted them to remember me, right? There are a bunch of times where we'll talk to a client about something completely not related to personal injury, just so that we can be helpful. Because our mission, like our purpose, is to help people. And we found that the more we talk to people and just help them through whatever problem they're having, a problem with a landlord and tenant problem, right? I'll sit there and talk. No attorney, like hardly any attorneys, will talk to people about that stuff. And so I'll just sit down and talk to them. And every person in my organization has the authority to set up a conference call with me to talk to a client about something not related to personal injury. For that very reason, because our mission, our purpose is to help people. And we find that builds up. There's a PR function there that helps, feedback through the feedback loop. But I wanted to ask you something about. I don't know if this is something you wanted to dwell on, but like the conversion rate, right? There's something you were talking about earlier, about the conversion rate and about intake. First of all, we don't ever call our people intake people. They're there to qualify and convert, right?
Okay.
Means right. So whenever I hear the word intake, I think of a person mindlessly sitting at a computer, blah blah blah. Like for us, because the personal injury world is so saturated with every lawyer in the world that does personal injury, every phone call is a sales call, right? We're talking to them long enough to qualify them as a potential customer, and then tell them about how good we are at our job and get them to sign while they're still talking to us. So it's not like an intake. I'm going to put all this stuff in, and then I'm going to hand it to the lawyer, and the lawyer's going to talk to you sometime next week. Like we're there.
I actually like that process because there's not an opportunity for the ball to be dropped.
Yeah, exactly. I learned that from a smart guy named Grant Cardone, who wrote this book called Sell or Be Sold. And I learned two really important things from him on that book. He said, one, your sales, your conversion should be as few steps as possible, right? If you're and he spent all of his time training salespeople on car lots and how to sell cars, and trying to get them to close their conversion process so it's not 15 steps, it's like 3, right? But the other thing he said, which radically changed my practice, John, was you can't sell people unless that's in writing in front of their face. And that hit me really hard because I had been trying to explain things to people all this time instead of writing it and putting it in front of their face. And we radically changed our practice about 3 years ago. And everything, all those three variables we talked about earlier, we have a letter for each one of those. And we
Oh,
send that
wow.
letter to our client that says, here's our opinion about liability. Here's our opinion about coverage. Here's our opinion about damages, right? We're going to talk about how these three things make up the value of your case. Once we started putting that in writing and committing to it, everything changed. Our clients weren't confused. They weren't arguing with us about value because we put it in front of them in writing and showed them. And it made all the difference in the world.
That's got to be a competitive advantage for you because I don't think many PI firms do it that way. But you've got a good acronym, a good name, Bob Law. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. It is.
You
It is
just can't compete
recognizable.
with John Morgan saying bigger is better. And size matters.
That's right. That's right.
Which my wife pointed out to me has a double meaning, but
Yeah.
I guess so. Morgan and Morgan is from your area of the country, right? I mean, they're from the
Yeah, they're
South.
from. I think originally they're from Orlando, in Florida, and
Yeah,
they
they've
kind of
just grown to be everywhere now. So
yeah, they've grown to be many places. Yeah, but that's the way of things. Anyways, can we pivot because I wanted to just ask you some financial questions.
sure.
Um, I've been hearing other people talk about how like the tax advantages of the new bill that came out last year suggest that maybe if they were a pass-through organization, they might think about changing to C corporation, being taxed as a C corporation, not governed as a C corporation. Like, do you have an opinion about that? Like, what have you have you advised clients about that?
We have advised that the C corp with a 21% tax rate and now being extended with the new tax bill
Yeah,
is an attractive opportunity, which normally we would have said no to a C corp. And there are C corp law firms out there that have been historically C corps, and you're not really going to change that. The only hesitation I have is there's still the double taxation, right?
right,
If I'm going to pay you everything on a W-2 and drain the income out of the C corp, I'm only paying tax on what's left in there, right? Everything
right,
else is going out to you, and if you're in the highest tax bracket, you're still in the highest tax bracket. That's the same as if you were in an S corp or a partnership. There are some advantages to leaving some money in there, but again, if I pay it out as a dividend, I still have that double taxation on the dividend. So I don't see a C corp being as onerous as it used to be because of the lower tax rate,
right,
but it's about the same as being an S corp, really. Because if I want to differentiate pay, depending on my comp system, I have to do it through the W-2, and that's really important. There's a lot of S corp law firms out there
yeah,
with more than one owner. I don't mind an S corp law firm with one owner, 100%. But if I have two 50-50 owners and the comp system is eat what you kill, the only place I can differentiate, because S corps require pro rata distributions, is on the W-2. And then I've defeated the whole purpose of why I became an S corp, because all the TikTok accountants out there that they give you advice on TikTok and tax law
yeah,
say, oh, pay yourself a low salary, take everything else out in distributions. Well, when you have more than one owner in an S corp, the distributions have to go in proportion to ownership. Now, a partnership remains the most flexible way to allocate income and expense because I can do whatever I want in there. And so my comp model doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be on the W-2. The drawback is because you're active in a partnership, it would be self-employment income. So there's no way to minimize those SE taxes.
got
The
it.
other big thing that's in the tax law this year is the elimination of in meals for the employer's convenience. We at the accounting firm, people that
I
come in
hate
the
that.
office, I know we
I,
feed people
I
all
mean,
the time.
I use that all the time. In fact, we actually dedicate 1 cent out of every dollar that we earn to go to the lunch account. for the staff, because like that's the very reason that tax advantage was there, was to encourage my staff to work through lunch and get it paid for by the company, and not take an hour off and lose all their productivity for the day.
Right. It helped you, it helped them. And at
Yes.
least for the foreseeable future, that's it's either taxable to them, which, is kind of painful for them, or it's non-deductible by you.
Depending on how you can track it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I do think if you invited, maybe if you did a lunch and learn and invited a technical person in, then we could call it training, and you might be able to deduct it that way. Or if
Oh,
you brought, certainly if you brought
so many
clients,
great ideas right now.
certainly if you brought clients into the office to, do some sort of a reception, that would be deductible. But you're not going
Yeah,
to do that every Friday when you have Free Food Friday lunches.
but not Taco Tuesday gone. Yeah,
Right, right.
but I mean, ultimately, we're still going to do that for the productivity aspect of it. It just stinks that it's not going to be tax deductible. Now, you said something earlier in the thing I wanted to ask you about. Can I?
Yeah.
No, and like I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask you questions, but I'm just so
No,
curious
that's
about it.
fine.
Okay. You said like growth, profitability, and performance. Those are the key things that you're focused on with your clients, right? Like and you kind of alluded to this earlier when you're talking about like the profit first model, but like what are the things that you do with your clients to make them think about how profitable it is, or to make them maximize the profitability of their companies?
Well, look, we're trying to get them incrementally better. If your profitability isn't up to standards with your peers, then we're going to dig into what is it? Are you compensating the producers too much? So we look at gross profit. And when we talk about gross profit, it's firm fees minus the salaries and bonus plus overhead for the producers. Okay. And then everything below that gross profit line and that gross profit target, we want to be around 50%, because then the selling and other costs, the SG&A costs, are going to be around 25 to 30%. And so if any of those are out of whack, we can say, hey, your rent should be 7 or 8%. You're really running at 10%. Let's take a look at that. You might be
Right.
stuck in a lease for 2 more years, but we can figure out a way to minimize that going forward. Or if your comp model isn't influencing the right things for people, we can help you make some minor tweaks to that. It's tough to go in and revolutionize how you're paying people, because, once they're used to getting paid a
Right.
certain way. But
Yeah.
if you can get the incentives aligned with the firm goals, then that's a win for everybody, because they can make more money and so will you.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said something earlier also that I wanted to follow up on. You talked about like how much the employees are being paid and whether they're being productive, right? Like we've struggled with that because of our industry. There's a lot of competition for human resources, right? And the perception that most law firms, I think, have is, if I want to grow, it's really kind of a linear model, right? Where if I want to grow from representing 100 clients to 300 clients, my staff needs to be 3 times as big, right? And we've struggled with accepting that model, right? I need to add an attorney and 2 more paralegals, or I need to whatever in order to do that. I'm like, have you run across other law firms that are using like automation, or the new AI stuff, to be more efficient with the staff that they have?
I do think that's a huge opportunity here. And there's two camps of attorneys that view AI one way or the other. One thinks it's the ruination of the profession, and the other is embracing it, realizing that every 3 months it's getting better or worse,
Yeah.
and it's changing, right? So you might have to pivot 3 months from now. But if you can create even 15 or 20% efficiency in a lot of the repeatable processes and still
Yeah.
have human oversight,
Yeah.
then you won't have to have a new attorney and two paralegals to increase your productivity. And I'm not suggesting that we, double in size and keep the same people, but I'm saying let's create some repeatable things that don't need that human interaction on the front end, but need it on the review side before it goes out the door. to create efficiencies in those processes. And I do think the firms that utilize AI and automation will be able to compete with bigger firms with the same or less resources.
Yeah, we've invested heavily in that. Well, I'll tell you, when I drilled down to like understanding how it works, what I found was this: one, the thing that lawyers do, kind of we talked about the function of lawyers being able to handle a bunch of variables, but really, if you distill it down to like the tool is to take all kinds of data and synthesize that data into a narrative, right? If I'm going to trial, I'm taking all the evidence and I'm assimilating all that evidence and synthesizing it into a story, right? That I'm telling to the jury. Or if I'm like evaluating a case for my client, doing the same thing. Or I'm talking to an insurance company. That's it. And that's what AI is particularly good at, right? Being able to take just tons and tons of data and assimilate it into a narrative. And so what we found was, one of our key drivers of costs was having a highly skilled paralegal that can write medical narratives. And we were paying a six-figure salary for a highly skilled paralegal to be able to go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of medical records and then synthesize that into a medical narrative. And we found that the AI models will do it 85% as good.
And then you can still have that person go back and double check and review, but she's not, or he or she's not going through 40,000 medical records because the AI tool synthesized what was important.
Exactly. That person, you still have to have the human in the loop. What the smart people call the human in the loop, right? That person who is checking over and making sure, like they already know the case, they already know the facts. They're making sure that the AI agent is not hallucinating stuff, right? And making sure that it's right. But it takes a fraction, like a minuscule fraction of the time to process it. And we found that to be like super helpful. It allows us to actually take all of the hundreds of medical records in our client's case and synthesize it into a 3-page letter that says, here's what all the doctors are saying to you. We've never been able to do that before. Years ago, we would have to just talk to the client and say, well, the doctor said blah, right? Or the doctor said you were all better or whatever. Now we're just showing them, right? Look, this is the narrative of what the doctor says. It's so much more powerful.
What's the case management system that you use?
It's interesting you ask about that. You did not tee this up for me, but I want to talk about it. We've been using FileVine, and we're not. I want to say bad things about FileVine. FileVine people, they're good people. They have a great product, but it doesn't quite do as much as we want it to do. Mostly because we want to be in like a single pane of glass. We want to be doing everything within the platform. And so what we're actually doing is we're taking that system I described to you earlier of writing letters to the clients about the things, and we're building our own software platform called One Counsel. And we're going to license it to other attorneys and allow them to use the same system that we've developed here at the Bob Law Firm in their own practices, and be able to do all those things, like in a more like, I don't know how to describe this, but like the reason that lawyers don't do all of the things that they know that they should do to provide a good experience for their clients is they think that it's too hard and it takes too long to do. Right? I know that as an attorney, I should be reasonably informing my client as to what is going on with their case so that they can make informed decisions about the outcome. That's literally the ethics rule from the American Bar Association, from the Georgia Bar Association, right? That's my duty. But most of the time, it's too hard to do that, right? Because there are so many records, there are so many variables, there are so many things. But if we can harness the technology that we have now, it's actually not hard anymore, right? It's not hard to talk to your clients, and it's not hard to write letters to them substantively about what's going on with their case. And we've developed the system so that we can actually do that, and we have good communication with our clients. I'll have John sorry, I'm droning on, but I get so excited about this. Like my my week, I will talk to 65 to 70 clients in a week, all in about 10-minute increments. And we have them lined up on my conference call. I'll pick up the phone. I'll say, look, I was scheduled to call you at 2:10. Did you get my letter about this? Yep, I got your letter about this. Like, do you understand what coverage means? Yeah, I understand what coverage means. Great. What questions can I answer for you about it? No, I totally get it. Right. And so these conversations that I'm having with my client are not me like picking up the phone and telling them, bad news, we didn't get a good offer or whatever. Like I'm calling them after they've already watched my video about what to expect and they've read my letter about what's going on, and then we're talking.
So you've built this whole process and implemented this communication that complies with the ethics rule. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk to you offline about the software venture you're doing and the potential for R&D credits, and then also tell you a war story about a similar situation. Before we wrap up, I want to hear about your time at Augusta. And I think you're going to tell me you saw Tiger Woods first play there?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember if it was 97 or 96 that was his first year. I think when I saw him, so at the time I was a gymnastics coach, and like all of the parents there, they all had a bunch of them had tickets to go see the Masters, and a bunch of time, and every once in a while, one of the parents would say, "Hey, you coaches, do you want to go to, you want Masters tickets for today?" And it was always like on a Friday or something like that. And so that year, I think it was 97, I got the tickets, and I got to see Tiger Woods I think it was his first year as a pro. And I got to see him go through Amen Corner and onto the 14th, and it was just like it was really an exciting time. And of course, the Augusta National Golf Course is one of the most beautiful golf courses anywhere.
What a great experience. I don't know if he's turned 50 this year or next year, but we have a senior event here every fall, and I'm hoping against hope that he would, decide to come to St. Louis, but we'll see. Hey, before we wrap up, how can folks get a hold of you?
You can always find us. You don't have to know a particular website. All you need to remember is Bob Law Firm. If you type in Bob Law Firm, hardly anything else will come up except I think some attorney named Robert who's up in New York. But
we're trying to steal your clients from Georgia.
I think he had the name before I did. But anyways, you can find us at boblawfirm.com. We're in Atlanta. We're right next to the Braves Stadium, or the Truist Park where the Braves play. And if you ever need us for anything, you want to just talk about your legal issue, I'd be glad to talk to you. As I said earlier, like my purpose in life is to help people. And if you call my office, I'm going to find some way to help you.
Well, Ben, thank you so much. And thank you all for turning in to Judicial Dollars and Cents. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure and like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us grow and ensures you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.